Will Rahul Gandhi, the leader of the opposition, be summoned by the ED? Will that interrogation result in his arrest? What do I think about this particular prospect? If you're interested, you're welcome. And I wish all of you a very good day. Without any introduction or prefatory remark, let me start with the stark question. Will Rahul Gandhi be summoned by the ED to be questioned? I'm 100% certain that he will be. Will he be arrested consequent to this interrogation? I'm 49% certain that he will be. Why do I think so? I have to warn you at the outset that there will be absolutely no structure or forethought to this video, its contents. I am going to allow my mind free play in dealing with the subject because it is a still evolving, much of it anticipatory phenomenon, and therefore it's better not to have a structured approach to presenting this theme. Why I feel that Rahul Gandhi will certainly be acted upon or proceeded against is the degree of discomfort, indeed suffocation and strangulation, that our Prime Minister feels with regard to the role that Rahul Gandhi is now playing and his growing, skyrocketing popularity and his ability to pin the government down to issues of significance and to adopt a bold, forthright, and clearly spelt out stand on each of this. And above all, the sort of representative scope and reach that Rahul Gandhi has now attained via is assuming the role of the leader of the opposition, in which capacity he represents the standpoint of about 28 parties in India. Numerically, they comprise the majority, though in parliamentary terms they are still the minority and therefore they sit in the opposition. Now, when the Prime Minister made a public outcry that he feels strangulated and no one in this country will be allowed to gala kotao of the Prime Minister, गला घोटाने का काम करने के लिए नहीं अनुमति देंगे. I, on that very moment, assumed that the process of proceeding against Rahul Gandhi will be initiated for the simple reason that the only person who was under reference in that emphatic and desperate statement by the Prime Minister that किसी को भी देश के प्राइम मिनिस्टर का गला घोटने का अनुमति नहीं देंगे, that nobody in this country will be allowed to strangulate the Prime Minister of the country. That statement could have referred only, absolutely only, to Rahul Gandhi. And therefore, I very clearly anticipated that action will be initiated against him, because as compared to the previous instance in which action through litigation was initiated against him in order to exclude from the parliament because he made a reference to Adani, and also following that the humiliation of his expulsion from the parliament and his official residence being taken away from him, all being publicly displayed, the idea of being thrown out of one's own or one's house, not own house, but one's house, in full public view, is a humiliation of extreme proportion. So a political leader being subjected to all of that. So reprisal is something to be expected. At least I was very clear that it would happen. And if it happens, this time I'm pretty clear that it will be something far more drastic than what was done last time. That's why I feel that Rahul Gandhi will surely be summoned. He'll be subjected to a series of interrogation. How prolonged, one does not know now. If his arrest is already predetermined, then the process of interrogation will not last more than 3 hours. On the other hand, if it is to create the impression nationwide that there is something seriously wrong with this man, then it is likely that the process of interrogation will last much longer, which could then may or may not result in his arrest and incarceration. Now, what do I think about this? I feel that the Prime Minister has every right to deal with Rahul Gandhi, or the Prime Minister is fully justified in dealing with Rahul Gandhi as per his perception of what Rahul Gandhi has come to be. And clearly, according to his perception, Rahul Gandhi has now become an existential threat to Narendra Modi. Now, this to me is the most significant aspect of this scenario, which surprisingly nobody is talking about. If Rahul Gandhi is summoned and if he is arrested, what it means is that clearly the Pappu stage of engaging with Rahul Gandhi is over. And the Pappu becoming an existential threat, that stage is now not only begun, it's publicly being acknowledged, and a statement or a confession is being made nationwide. There is no other way to deal with this threat, this crisis, this existential crisis that we as a party and Narendra Modi as the Prime Minister of the country are facing, except that of putting him out of action for as long as the legal system in this country would permit. Now, whether that is moral, immoral is a different issue. I'm only saying that from Sri Narendra Modi's point of view, the situation has reached the situation of either or, either I or Rahul. And I'm reminded of a statement by Confucius, the Chinese philosopher, which you will see displayed in some of the shops in Delhi. The statement is this: you ask me for credit, I give you credit, and I ask you for the money to be paid back to me, then you go mad. You ask for credit, I don't give credit, you go mad. Better you go mad. That is to say, if the choice is between my going mad and your going mad, if the choice is between my going mad and your going mad, better you go mad. That is Confucius down to earth wisdom. So that wisdom applies to this context. If the situation is either or, which in my opinion it has reached, clearly it has reached, and I'm saying this with reference to several parameters, in particular the tremendously shall I say, intensifying, expanding, spiraling, skyrocketing popularity of Rahul Gandhi, which is increasing by the day, in fact, by the hour. In fact, the helpless, desperate, neglected, tormented people, wherever they are in this country, today look up to Rahul Gandhi as the only source through which some relief may come to them. Now, why I am saying that Rahul Gandhi has now become an existential threat both to BJP and to Sri Narendra Modi is this. If you look at the period from 2014 to 2019, that 5-year period, Narendra Modi was directly, spontaneously, intimately and intensely connected to the people of India. In fact, he existed in the hearts of the people of India. And I have to admit that I was very positive to Narendra Modi, particularly because in 2014, he began with a very loud declaration that he will ensure that India will be a country of zero tolerance for corruption. I've always been worried about corruption because corruption affects the welfare of the poor. Corruption is not at all a bad thing for the elite, the economic ruling elite. Actually, corruption is good news for them because it makes life a lot easier for them. In fact, people become richer through corruption. The real victims of corruption are the poor, the marginalized, the downtrodden, the exploited, the wretched of the earth, as Frantz Fanon would say in his very celebrated book of the title, published in the 60s of the last century, The Wretched of the Earth. I would commend this book to my viewers. If you're interested in understanding the plight of the colonized people and how, from the perspective of an ideologue of liberation, their plight is to be viewed. It makes very interesting reading. The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon, a Franco-Algerian author who died of cancer in the 60s. So, during that period, in the first 5-year period of Narendra Modi's reign, he became an icon of the aspirations of the people. Everybody looked up to him. But from 2019 onwards, slowly disenchantment started creeping in. For example, the promise that he made that black money to the tune of some $2,500 billion. It's an astronomical amount which you can't even imagine. I don't have the mathematical brain to imagine a sum as huge as that. $2,500 billion. Each billion is 8.5 thousand crores. Each $1 billion is 8.5 billion, 8.5 thousand crores of rupees. Multiply that with 2,500, then you get the actual amount. That's why Sri Narendra Modi said quite confidently and correctly that within 100 days of assuming office, he would ensure that this mammoth, insanely astronomical amount of wealth taken out of this country and stashed in tax havens in anonymous accounts would be brought back to the country, and that would be distributed to the citizens of India, and each one of us would become richer by 15 lakhs. We would have become richer by 15 lakhs if we had actually delivered on the promise, which of course, what happened to the promise, you know, and what happened to the work of the committee appointed by the Supreme Council to supervise this process also, you know. Everything came under, everything ran aground. Nothing has come of it. So, see, Narendra Modi was the cynosure of the nation's conscience and consciousness both. Then disenchantment started slowly setting in. But that disenchantment was for a while arrested through the Pulwama attack, and therefore 2019 was won. But that victory did not really change the ground realities, and therefore when real life issues began to pinch the citizens of India, they began to feel the sting of day-to-day life. Again, the disenchantment woke up and began to slowly intensify, aggravate. And then, of course, various facets of corruption began to emerge, particularly political corruption, namely buying MLAs at humongous prices in order to bring down duly constituted governments and usurp power in states. This unscrupulosity, which was financed by unseen hands, which anybody with any common sense, unfortunately there are people with common sense in this country, will understand as the product only of corruption, mega corruption. Then of course various other things came to light. I want to go into those unedifying details. Now, all of this has actually had the unfortunate effect of alienating Sri Narendra Modi from the emotional attachment he had so effectively created with the citizens of this country far and wide. And how great that alienation indeed had become surfaced or came to light through the Ayodhya temple episode, which is the greatest irony of Indian history. An event which was very carefully calibrated to mark the highest point of Modi's popularity actually became a barometer to measure the extent to which his popularity has declined and how far he has distanced himself from the emotions, the attachment, the sentiments, and the loyalty of the people of India. It is into this vacuum that Rahul Gandhi moved so successfully. That's where I give him full credit. Not because I have any political loyalty. When I say this, people say, oh, why do you have to say it again and again? Yes, it has to be said again and again because people tend to forget and because so much of misunderstanding is being deliberately spread. Rahul Gandhi was eminently successful. He proved himself to be not a pappu in this respect, that he actually outwitted his political antagonists. And now he has become a problem that the BJP, the Modi, Amit Shah combined simply do not know what to do with, how to manage. So, two things have happened. They're related to each other. One is you can imagine like a balance, a weighing balance, okay, with two scales. Put Modi in the scale, Rahul Gandhi in the scale, okay. So, if up to 2020, 2022, the position of the scales was like this: Modi far heavier, Rahul lighter. Gradually it began to shift. Now it is like this: Rahul is heavier and Modi has become lighter. And this is getting aggravated further and further because, and this is what Modi clearly understands, the BJP think tank clearly understands, Rahul has very clearly picked up a particular psychological theme, namely fear. Now clearly, nobody wants, no people want to live in a state of fear for any period of time. So Rahul is extremely shrewd in picking up this element of fear, ascribing that very clearly and publicly to the regime led by Narendra Modi and Amit Shah, the Chakravyuh speech, the six, and then projecting himself as the one who will liberate people from this oppressive fear that people have to live under. Whether that is true or not is a different issue. I'm simply describing the process as to what has actually happened, what is done, its impact, so on and so forth. This is exactly what Rahul Gandhi did. And it's very clear from all that has happened in the last 1 month in particular, it hasn't taken much time. In 1 month's time, the impact of that particular political strategy, psychological come political strategy, has proved to be humongous, nightmarish for the BJP. Secondly, Rahul Gandhi has now successfully managed to break the spell of the Modi magic, the aura around Modi as the invincible person, as a person whom nobody dares to question, as a person to whom there is no equal. Now, the best way to break that spell of inequality is to ask questions. If you know the history of slavery, you will know that a slave has no right to ask questions of the master. If you know the history of conquest, then you know that the conquered people have no right to ask a question of the victor. The vanquished must only take orders but never ask a question. The victor is not duty bound to answer anybody's question. It is his right to issue orders, to decide unilaterally and peremptorily how the people, the subjects, the conquered people should behave, how they should live, what they should do, what they should not do, with even to the extent of whether or not they should own their own wealth. All this is part of the history of conquests. So what Rahul Gandhi, I think Rahul Gandhi has a very acute sense of history. As I said to you in one of my earliest videos, he is a very profound reader, like his mother and his sister. This whole family is a family of profound readers. I wish some of the university professors could be as good readers as these three are. So he has a very clear and acute sense of history. And he knows that once questions begin to be raised to the man in authority, the very fact of raising these questions and the very fact that these questions are having a huge impact completely destroys this hierarchical inequality that was created between the Prime Minister and the rest of India. With that, Modi becomes just another person. The high pinnacle on which he was placed was lost. And as Modi's biographers have been telling us, from his boyhood days, from his school days, psychologically he was used to functioning only at the top. For example, he was interested in the theatre. He would act a role only if that is the prominent role in control of all the rest. That is how his mental makeup is. Nobody can blame him because that's how he is. And this kind of personality type works. It appeals to people as it did. It's not a small thing to become the Prime Minister of a country of 140 crore people. We have to really appreciate that. So there is something about it. But everything has its shelf life. So this type, this psychological type, has had its shelf life. Something else will take its place. That's the inevitable process in history. So what happens to this kind of personality orientation or this kind of character type is this: that the moment that particular arrangement, that particular aura, that particular scheme of things is disturbed, and something more like equality is brought into it, he feels totally disoriented. And since all of you have been watching Sri Narendra Modi in action, as I have been, you would have certainly noticed the increasing degree of discomfort, even of bewilderment on his face. I was following Sri Narendra Modi practically in every election speech he made. He was out of his depth, and I said it even at that time. I found him almost woefully out of his depth. And he was training to connect to the emotions of the people. He was failing. Ever and anon he was failing. And now when he speaks in the parliament, it does not have the old vitality, the old cutting edge, the old impact. He's training. And that strain is so visible on his face. Unfortunately, sometimes the camera focuses on his face, and that's the one thing that should not be done. Those who are operating the cameras in the parliament should be clearly instructed to be very discreet in focusing the camera on the Prime Minister's face, to make sure that his face is beamed to the country only when it is in the happiest state. That's the least courtesy that must be extended to our Prime Minister. Some of the visuals that have come actually, it pains me. So from these I know how distressed he feels. And pure basic principle in behavioral psychology is that if any living organism perceives that it is in a state of existential threat, it will react violently. It will never react in a very subtle, soft, gentle, ascetic, saintly manner. It will react violently. But what happens is, this again history. History tells us that when such situations are reacted against violently, or are managed to be, or attempted to be managed with draconian methods, all those methods prove to be counterproductive. That's been the pattern in history so far. I don't know if this pattern will apply to the contemplated action against Rahul Gandhi, especially if he's arrested and put in prison. Will it become counterproductive? If it becomes counterproductive, how seriously counterproductive it will be? All this is now in the realm of speculation. But what I can tell you is that right up to this moment, what history tells us consistently is that when a person acts in desperation in order to bring under control a situation in which he thinks that he is facing an existential threat, he is apt to resort to draconian methods, extreme methods, which are then bound to be counterproductive because already the tide of history has turned against him. If the tide of history is in your favor, the strong arm twisting methods that you adopt may pay off. But if the tide of history has turned against you, the very same methods will become seriously counterproductive. A clear example is Napoleon Bonaparte's experience in the Battle of Waterloo, which is the turning point in the life of Bonaparte. He was a great warrior, a great tactician in war making, an incomparable leader, charismatic, efficient, schooled in the art of warfare, the entire nation united behind him. He managed to tap into the French fervor about national honor. No one could have been a more effective leader than Napoleon. Surely not. He's the one who really fascinates me, the reason why I have spent so much of my time studying his life. But what happened? With Waterloo, you find a definite turn. History is turning against him. And Victor Hugo, in his masterpiece, Les Miserables, The Miserable People, Les Miserables, has about 50 pages where he gives us a beautiful account of the Battle of Waterloo. And he concludes that section, though Les Miserables is a novel, it is actually much more than a novel. It's perhaps the most beautiful account of the Battle of Waterloo you can ever read. That's beside the point. So, when he concludes that section, Victor Hugo says, it was not the British who defeated Napoleon in Waterloo, it was history that defeated Napoleon. Something similar is happening in India at the moment. We don't have to wait long. We shall soon see whether the tide of history has turned against Narendra Modi or not. I'm not saying that the tide of history should turn against him or not turn against him. I'm not here to take a partisan view of things. I'm here only to give you an academic, historical perspective on what is happening, assuming that all my viewers would be interested in thinking for themselves. This is the reason why I don't saddle anyone with my views, my conclusions, my insights, my gyan. I'm here only to provide the basic material and the matrix for each one to undertake his or her investigation or at least contemplation. So, it's a situation of either or. This has to play itself out. Now, unfortunately, the situation of either or, again, insight from history, does not augur well for the people, whichever country it is. Because unless and until this either or situation in which two possible blocks or two forces are in a state of contention, life and death contention, until that is settled, that will take a while to settle. The people or the country concerned, the society will be in a state of disarray, drift. So whatever potentialities, whatever possibilities for really dynamic, substantial growth that India could have achieved will now be stalled. And of course, all the blame each party will try to shift the blame to the other party, and that process has already begun. For example, the BJP camp says that Rahul Gandhi is in a conspiracy in collusion with Hindenburg and George Soros and others to ruin the economy of India. Rahul Gandhi is in collusion with certain Bangladeshi forces to bring about this crisis in Bangladesh in order to ruin India's prospects. India's prospects are that Adani has huge stakes in Bangladesh. He generates 1,500 megawatts of electricity and supplies to the Bangladesh government to be distributed. Ambani also has huge stakes. He is in the oil business. So Rahul Gandhi is in a state of conspiracy against national interests. National interests are equated with just two people. Just as Louis XIV said, I am the state. Today we can say India is Adani, India is Ambani. Well, that's their credit. That is their competence, their ability, their magic. We should not only talk about the Modi magic, we should also talk about the Ambani magic, the Adani magic. Well, that's not my field. I'm not an economist, therefore I refrain from commenting on things economical. So this much is very clear to me, that we have now reached a tipping point. We have reached the most interesting part in this unfolding scenario, about which actually I sense a touch of providence. Something more than human seems to be intuitively, I feel, or it's my counterintuition if you like, that something more than merely human is at play here. What exactly it is, hopefully we will attain greater clarity in the days ahead. But in the meanwhile, watch very carefully how things are going to play out. Be vigilant. We are into very interesting times. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.